Yay!
Yep.
So happy. So welcome everybody. Maybe we should wait for a couple more minutes. We had 900 people say that they were going to come, and looks like we're at about 77. So we'll give it a couple minutes. I'll introduce myself now. My name is Elisa, and I'm the Community Marketing Manager at Cronometer. And this year we've been really lucky to work with two professionals in the industry. So we have Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, who has taken nutrition education to a next level, and then celebrity trainer. Got someone working out in the background there.
No, there's a very large human in the background.
Sorry, it's my cousin getting some work in back there. So he'll be silent, but it's all good. Thanks for having us on, guys. Thank you, Elisa. And Dr. G, come on, long time no speak. What's it been about? It's been about 15 minutes.
Yeah. So it's so funny, right? The male preparation to get ready to do a webinar is no time. He saw me 15 minutes ago. My hair was out to here. I'm with my kid. Water's everywhere.
Oh my God, you look amazing. You're the best. But that's why you're a rock star.
I just locked my puppy in the crate in the basement. That was my Zoom prep. So maybe we'll just give it 2 more minutes, and then we'll get this started.
Well, look at this. I'm seeing a lot of my challengers on here, which I'm really excited about. And I know Dr. G and I were just talking about how excited we are to connect with everyone here today. And Elisa, thank you and the whole Cronometer team for just being so amazing. I mean, you guys have been such great partners for us, and we're just so excited about this partnership.
Yeah, this has been amazing. I'm really happy this year that we get to work with some influencers in the industry and really spread the Cronometer message. And for those of you who don't know, both Dr. G, should we be referring to as Dr. G or?
Yes, of course.
Okay, great. And Dawn are both Cronometer trackers before we even started working with them. So this is awesome. Laura says she needed a break from life and glad to listen to this.
Oh, Laura's on right now. Laura, how are you, sweetie? So there's a bunch of my challengers are on here right now, and they know Dr. G very well because I'm always bringing Dr. G on to speak to them. So and they know Cronometer very well because we brought you guys on. So this is fantastic.
Absolutely. I didn't know it was. I say Cronometer. It's so funny. People always say it differently. You can say it however you want it, Charlie. So I think we'll jump right in. I did notice, if we can ask you a question first, Dr. G, one of the questions that was asked on our social media, which I thought was a really good one, was a woman asked if she should count her collagen towards her protein target.
What a great question. And I think that there's a lot of confusion about collagen. Collagen is amazing for hair, skin, and nails, but I do not actually count collagen towards your total protein goals. And the reason is simply it's an incomplete protein. But you do and should count it toward calories, but it doesn't count towards total protein.
That's amazing. Thank you. So I'll just pull up some of the other questions that we had on socials. Dawn, someone asked, and this would be for you, how you effectively lose body fat while keeping as much muscle as possible.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is an amazing question, right? And I think Dr. G and I think see eye to eye on this. Everyone's under the assumption that you have to be in this extreme deficit to lose body fat. And I know a large level of success I've had with people in dropping body fat. Remember, dropping body fat and losing weight can be two different things. And sometimes just by getting them to their total daily energy expenditure, meaning their TDEE, that's the total number of calories that they're going to burn in a day. Sometimes getting them there with a high level of food quality and a level of consistency coupled with training, rest, hydration, all these important things can change body composition. So let me give you an example. I had one of my challengers this last year. She was able to put on 8 pounds of muscle and burn 8 pounds of fat, right? So technically she's the same weight, She's made an incredible body composition change, but she's the same weight. So I think the big misconception is suddenly we have to put everyone into this deficit or this extreme deficit. And if you're already starting off to track with Cronometer and you are already in a deficit and you haven't been changing your body comp, bringing yourself into even more of a deficit, I think could be very hurtful to your body, to your energy level, to your rest and recovery. So sometimes what we've seen happen is as we start tracking using Cronometer and we start bringing up those calories slowly, we can get the weight almost to stay the same, but we can have an extreme change in body composition. So that's always my goal. My goal is always first is to maintain that total daily energy expenditure. So that total number of calories that you're burning. If we can get you to that point and change body composition, that's fantastic. If we need to go beyond that and the body has been making great gains by hitting that TDEE, then we can slowly get you into a little bit of a deficit after a period of time. And we can then, take you, to that next level. But people who live in that deficit all year long, this can become, in my opinion, when I say dangerous, I don't necessarily mean you're going to die, right? I mean you're going to
very extreme, yes.
Very extreme, yes. But I mean, this could be very dangerous to your metabolism, your energy level, your mood, your rest, and your recovery. So when and I'd love to get Dr. G's opinion on this, but when someone says to change body composition, we have to get you into this deficit, it's not always the case, guys. It doesn't always work that way. I want to kick that over to Dr. G now.
Yeah, Don made some great points here. When you think about body composition, you want to think about quality, either weight loss or weight gain. And quality weight loss would be about maintaining skeletal muscle. Skeletal muscle is incredibly important. It's essentially your body armor. It really directs how you utilize calories, which again, where Cronometer is so important is to really be able to track not just your macronutrients, but also your micronutrients. And being in a severe deficit or actually doing any kind of extreme dieting is very detrimental, not only physically. And when I say physically, it creates a lot of stress, right? It can increase cortisol, it can affect hormones, but also it sets you up for failure. And when you do that, it affects people mentally over a period of time. So slow and steady wins. It doesn't have to be extreme. You optimize for protein to maintain muscle mass. Tracking your calories really, really help to be able to get a sense of what you're doing and being consistent.
100%. And just to add to that a bit, it's funny because I've done probably more celebrity transformations than almost any other coach on the planet. And, even the ones I've been working with now for decades, the goal should be, we want to at least maintain or try and build muscle. Building muscle could be the focus if we want to burn body fat, right? Because when people want to drop body fat and they get themselves into the deficit, if you're burning muscle with that, well, what good is that? Because the more muscle we have in our body, the more receptible to fat burning our body's going to become. So I think a lot of times we hear this terminology of putting on muscle, and especially a big portion of my female clients would get panicked of that in the past, where if we got them training consistently, if we got them to focus on putting on muscle, and, we really kind of controlled where their calories were and made sure other things like cheat meals and alcohol consumption and all the stuff didn't go overboard, 9.5 out of 10 times, I would find that body composition would improve drastically. And, and we would actually be able to maintain a level of muscle without burning that up. So that's the goal. If you want to drop body weight, if you want to drop body fat, go ahead and do it. Absolutely. But just not at the cost of burning muscle. I think that's when we start really beating ourselves up.
Yeah.
Don just described the entire paradigm shift, which is so essential. We're going from fat phobic to muscle centric. Don, that was beautiful. So that's actually where we think.
You guys kill it. I think that there's been such a shift though. I've worked for Cronometer for 4 years. And even in that time, I've just noticed how much more knowledge is out there about nutrition. And a lot of the time there used to be like recommendations for like 1,200 calorie diets. We're not seeing that as much anymore. Like people want to be fit and strong and know the benefits. So I think we're on the precipice of a lot of change here. We did get a question from Rodney. If anyone else has any questions, just poke them in there, please. We'd love that. He says, can't we record the collagen protein as its individual amino acids so as to get the protein totals?
Well, so that's a very interesting question. And one of the things that we have to think about is there are 20 amino acids and each does something metabolically different in the body. Specifically, when we're talking about body composition and the macronutrients, what we are really focusing on are the essential amino acids. The essential amino acids, which there are 9 of them, and is specifically for muscle building, we think about the branch chains. Collagen is nearly devoid in those. So yes, you could absolutely go and write down the 18 amino acids that are in collagen or 17, but we have to think about it from a practical perspective. Our goal is body composition in general. I mean, maybe that's not your goal, but having a complete protein, whether it's body composition, whether it's repair of hair, skin, and nails, and any other tissue in your body, we have to think about it in the context of whole foods. So Rodney, that's a great question. I think a better way to think about collagen is an addition to an already optimized protein diet.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well said.
Charlie asks us, love these questions, everybody. How do we determine the best dosage for MCT?
Oh, wow. Do you want me to take this first or do you want to take this?
Totally up to you. I can take it if you want.
Yeah, why don't you go first and I'll see if I have something to add here.
So MCT, if I'm hearing you correctly, yes, medium chain triglycerides. They are very interesting and they're burned similar in a way to, say, carbohydrate-esque. When you think about MCT, we actually used this in my clinic when I was in my fellowship, and we used it for brain function. And the dose for brain function was between 5 and 10 grams at a time. And you can go from 5 to 14 grams. So, it just all depends on what your goal. I actually think it's a fantastic supplement.
That's awesome.
I love it as well. I mean, the only negative effects I've ever really heard from MCT oil, sometimes people can get a little bit of a loose stomach from it.
Yeah. I've heard that as well.
Yeah.
I like to say,
Lisa's like, I've never had that.
I like to say, if you overstay, you're welcome with it. But MCT oil and these added fats, like MCT oil, that would be one of my go-to oils. Even when I was prepping for several covers, even this a couple months ago, I was on the cover of Muscle and Fitness. MCT oil would be, I think, my fat of choice. That and pretty much olive oil, if I would add that in. But I think that would also come down to, if you are measuring macros, where are your macros supposed to be? If you're, following a 35-35-30, meaning 35 protein, 35 carbs and 30 fat, then, how much fats are you getting through animal proteins or fish or maybe other oils, nuts and seeds? And at that point, if you are following 30% of your total calories, you're going to find that number isn't as high as you really think. Right now, there's other devices out there that are reading metabolic flexibility, like Lumen, where they're actually promoting you to actually focus on utilizing higher fat diets as energy sources. And in those cases, when you're following plans like that, I think using things like MCT oil and olive oil more frequently is definitely a great tool for you to keep in the toolbox. It's a very easy way to get a quick additional 15 grams. Right, Dr. G? It's like you need a quick 15-gram bump. You throw in a tablespoon of MCT or olive oil, and you're pretty much right there.
That's great. We have so many great questions pouring in. Fabiana asks, and I love this one, what's the difference between time-restricted feeding and intermittent fasting? Oh. Interesting.
Wait, did we just black out there? Is everyone good? Dr. G, I can't hear you.
No, I somehow got muted and I can't unmute myself. Yeah, so sorry.
Strange. Did you hear that?
So the question was, what's the difference between intermittent fasting and time restricted feeding?
Yeah.
Well, number one, I think that these are all really good ways to think about calorie control. Time restricted feeding is exactly that. It's eating in a confined hour and fasting in the rest. So for example, you are eating in an 8 to 9 hour window and you are fasting 16 hours, depending on the time frame that you're doing. Time restricted feeding and intermittent fasting is arguably used interchangeably and the same. Number one, it is really good for people with digestive issues because it does allow for bowel rest and you're not feeding all the time. You know, it's really interesting when we think about our body's rhythm and this idea of circadian rhythm. One of the things that actually trains and entrains that is food. So if you eat at specific times, allow your body to rest at other specific times, there can be some benefit. So
absolutely. I do the 16 and 8, and that's the first thing that I really noticed was my stomach just in general felt better, I think, because it just wasn't digesting all of the time. So
it's funny, and we've had this conversation before, but the only problem I have with intermittent fasting, because I do find it very valuable, is one, when someone's using it to consistently rebound from, you know, a poor night's eating, right? So the best way, in my opinion, to detox is through healthy, nutrient dense foods, right? Not like starving our body. So if you're in this vicious cycle of always eating terribly at night, you're like, oh, I'm just going to pretty much fast. Like it doesn't work out that way. You're not like counterbalancing the fact that you had this poor nutrition. You need healthy nutrition to be able to get and detoxify, you know, that poor nutrition. So, you know, it is a tool that I like to use, but I mean, especially for muscle building, it becomes very difficult. It's now you have this 8-hour window where if someone needs, let's say someone, and again, I'm using that term TDEE, let's say that their maintenance calories are at 3,600, you now have eight hours during the day to get in 3,600 calories. And that could be really difficult. So if you're trying to get to at least a maintenance phase, or if you're trying to be in some sort of a surplus to be able to put on muscle, intermittent fasting can make your life very, very difficult.
I think that that's a really good point. Number one, we have to determine what is our target. Are we looking for weight maintenance? Are we looking for quality weight loss? Or are we looking for muscle gain? Absolutely. As it relates to muscle gain, we know that overall protein matters. And then actually getting that protein in discrete meals. You know, the idea is maybe optimizing towards 50 grams or so. And that becomes exactly what Don is saying. So for example, Don is a big guy. If we have him if he's in a feeding window of 8 hours and he needs to get 200 to 300 grams of protein, that's going to be a lot. And it might not be optimized for hypertrophy or muscle building. How do I unmute him? I'm not the host. How do I do this?
Thank you.
It's going back. I wonder if there's like a time limit on it.
I don't know. I was
like, oh my God, is there a time limit?
It said the host has to unmute me. And I'm like, I'm not going to deal with this. I'm just going to hold up a sign.
That's hilarious.
This is getting very funny.
I have a really great question for you guys. This is from Fran. I'm not sure if you guys want to write down some numbers, but I'm going to throw some numbers at you here.
Sure.
So Fran has a question. I have 40 plus pounds to lose, and I'm currently on a plan of 1,040 calories. Protein is 140 grams, carbs is 100, and fats is 50. My TDEE is 2487. And I keep hearing about it being bad to be in a deficit, but if I'm not in a deficit, how will I continue to lose weight?
Well, I'm going to jump on this one first because I probably deal with 1,000 people a month on this.
Yes, you do.
Listen, if you're at 1,040 calories right now that you're consuming, and right, is that correct?
That was the
140,
number.
140 protein, 100 carbs, and 50 fat. So she's basically 1,400 and change off her maintenance calories. There's a couple questions I would ask myself first. One, how's your energy level? How's your sleep quality? Are you waking up frequently in the evening? Is your body composition changing? Has it been, has it been moving in the right direction? And if it hasn't been, or your energy level's off, or your sleep quality's off, these are great signs that you are just underfueled. You're trying to run a car without gasoline. So this is what I would recommend doing. I would never tell you right now to add in 1,340 calories overnight. But like, what's the rush? Like, if you turned around and you told yourself that over the next, however many weeks, 14 weeks, cut it, that we were going to bump that 100 calories a week, literally, like, you're going to slowly allow your body, and that might even be a little on the low side. We can maybe even take it up a little bit more. But what I have people do is maybe bump their calories from 100 to 200 calories, depending on their size. And I might make them maintain that for 7 days. So I'm like, all right, listen, for 7 days, I want you to maintain, plus 100 calories. And guys, think about 100 calories right now. That's 12 and a half grams of protein. That's 12 and a half grams of carbohydrates. That's a joke, right? Because 25 grams of protein it's going to be 4 calories. That's 100 grams. So if we took half and half of that, I'm telling you to bump, or you can go 25 grams of protein 1 week if your protein's that low, or 25 grams. This is all a game of math. And we spend the next however many weeks taking our time to slowly see if that adding those calories in, are we feeling like maybe 6 weeks in, as you're plus 600 calories and suddenly at 1640, you're like, oh my God, my energy level's getting better. I haven't gained an ounce of weight and my clothes are fitting me better. Then proof's in the pudding. But the big problem, guys, and I've seen this all the time, is that you read what your TDEE is and you say that we got to throw 1,400 calories in. And what's going to come with that? You're going to feel like crap, right? You're going to retain a boatload of water. You're going to get on the scale. You're going to see that your weight's up, and you're going to start freaking out and panicking. Then you lose confidence in the entire process. So take my advice on something. I've probably done this with tens of thousands of people. Take your time bringing your calories up, but set a plan. And the reason why I said 14 weeks was like, it was easy math for me to turn around and say, well, 100 calories a week is, 14 weeks is going to get us 1,400 calories. So if you literally took 100 calories a week and took your time, in 14 weeks, we're going to be up at that 2487, and it's not going to be that abrupt. You're probably not going to gain that excessive weight that you're hoping not to gain. And you're going to find that, oh my God, if my body can run efficiently at this TDEE for a certain period of time, let's keep you there. And then when everything stalls out and we feel like we're not seeing progress, then we can go to that toolbox and we can put yourself into a deficit for, like Dr. G said, a short period of time. Because the longer we live in that deficit, our body, guys, it starts failing. That's the best way to put it. It stops running as efficiently as we need to run.
Well, and we talked about this, Dawn. I was a participant on one of Dawn's Challenger calls, and I myself now at maintenance eat like 2,200 to 2,300 calories, and I am an active woman. But if you had told me 5 years ago, when I was essentially starving myself, not eating very much, that I would be able to eat that volume of food and that many calories, I would have never believed it. But we did that process that's Dawn's speaking to, just slowly every couple weeks bumped up my calories to this point. And it's amazing. My energy levels rose through the roof. And I think that it's a little scary for sure, to think about consuming that much. You're going to assume your weight's going up, but there's great value in that. Absolutely. And that's when tracking really helps, right? Because if you can't measure what you're not tracking. So that's a big problem. Even with, and Dr. G has helped me with preps in the past. I was on October's cover of Muscle and Fitness. And if I am, or 2018 or 2019 Men's Health, 2018 Muscle and Fitness. So in the last, 3-4 years, I've been on 3 covers, and I'm not gonna, for me to go into prepping and not tracking, there's too much room for variability. Like, I can use my eye, and I can try and use my palm, my hand, my fist to measure. Like, these are great ways of being able to gauge, but I need to learn from what my body's doing from prep to prep. And but by turning around and saying, all right, these are
this is the game plan. I've been at 500 grams of carbohydrates every single day. And now I've got to prep and, I'm going to put myself into a deficit and drop 200 grams of carbs. I'm still at 300 grams of carbs and my body fat's in the low single digits. And
he's
that.
maintained it. And what's so interesting about Don, and I say this all the time, is that Don is very unique in the way, and I think that this is what he's trying to teach all of you, which is the ultimate way to succeed is being able to be consistent. Don, you have never, a lot of the guys in the fitness industry and just a lot of people will relapse to weight gain. You've never done that. You have been consistent.
Yeah.
We know what your calories are.
Right.
You utilize it in a way that is smart and intelligent and is very number based.
Well, thank you.
But it's unusual, right? Because we see the relapse rate of weight gain is over. So the chances of losing weight and keeping it off, the chances of going backwards, it's 90%. The people that really succeed are those people that track and are consistent.
And it's tough, and you've seen it. I mean, the one thing that I've seen and I'm using the bodybuilding world because these are the people who are looking for the largest physique change.
Right.
But through this extreme dieting, you really guys, there's a cost to doing business here. Like when someone is on that low a carb, it doesn't mean they're healthy. Dr. G knows we all respond differently to carbs and fats, et cetera. But if you're always living in this severe deficit, after a period of time, the body starts adapting, but that may not be a good thing. Right.
No.
And so, Dr. G, take that a little bit too.
Yeah. The body is incredibly smart and super efficient. If you lower your calories too low, your body will be able to adjust to that. And then you may be burning or utilizing 800 calories a day, and you're wondering why you can't lose any more weight, and you really have nowhere to go. So the idea of really getting a great baseline understanding of how many calories you need, assessing the inputs coming in, whether it's exercise or non-exercise activity. Don and I, and I'm sure Lisa does, we move all the time, right? That's that neat activity. And then choosing foods when we were thinking about the total daily energy expenditure, then choosing foods that actually have an increased amount of energy required to burn them. And we've all heard protein, right? So this thermic effect of food, I'm sure everybody has heard something along those lines, that it takes more energy to burn protein than, say, fat or carbohydrates. So really thinking about that. And then the other component to weight loss, weight maintenance, is having the mindset to do it. It is not about severe restriction. That creates all kinds of problems, and it creates all kinds of self-esteem problems.
Also with body composition change, I think there's too much weight being put into cardiovascular training. And I love cardio, guys. It's for heart health, and I love getting on. I love getting the sweat, and I love almost like the mindlessness, right? I could just get on sometimes, whether I'm doing intervals or steady state. I can pretty much get lost a bit, but you're gonna burn more fat calories through resistance training. So when people are trying to drop body fat and they're like, I'm just going to start with cardio, I understand what they're getting at. They're just trying to get moving, and they're just trying to kind of kickstart things a little bit. But if you really want to change your body composition, try resistance training coupled with your aerobic or anaerobic training without oxygen, right? So our interval work or our steady state work. And if you're able to find a good balance of that, and you're able to get rest and focus on hydration, and you're able to start tracking. When I say tracking, I saw a question come in. I'm overwhelmed by tracking. Start with one meal a day. Turn around and just put your time into tracking breakfast or dinner, whatever the easiest meal is, right? And just spend the next week or month getting very comfortable with the process of going in and weighing your food or going in. And the thing I love about Cronometer is it takes me probably 30 seconds to log a meal now. So I think a big problem with this is we rush into these things, no matter what it is, whether it's our nutrition, whether it's our tracking, whether it's our training. Sometimes if we just took a little bit more of a minimalistic approach and just, I think, relaxed a little bit and just slowly started getting yourself adjusted to this new way of doing things, I don't think it would feel as, it was hindering your life as much.
Yeah, Jacob did ask, are there any tips for tracking? I do it sporadically and it's absolutely annoying and exhausting. Smiley face. I like the touch of the smiley face. And Dawn just did touch on this. I also track. I have for years. And I think that Jacob, I can give you just some quick tips. Creating custom recipes from foods you eat often really makes it quick. If you did track for probably a month, I'm not sure if you, Dr. G or Dawn can touch on this as well, but we are generally creatures of habit, and you'd find probably over a month that you're consuming a lot of the same foods. So there is a way that you can filter your search results by most recent, and that's typically what I do as well, Jacob, is I'll make that a little bit quicker. And then there's multi-add, which is a setting, and I don't track after every single meal necessarily, but I do track every day. So I will just go in and then multi-add my breakfast and my lunch at the same time. And it's super quick and easy. The more you do it, the faster it is. It probably took me like 10, 15 minutes a day when I started. And then I timed it once and like down to like a minute 40. So, and even though my diet has stayed a lot of the same, there are differences, like eating a banana to an apple changes your micro goals. So
yeah.
What do you, Dawn, you've been tracking for 6 years. Like what makes it quick for you?
I love how it just kind of has that little, I call it, it's like memory board. So it's like the most recently, used foods, because there's certain foods that, I'm going to go back to almost every day. I mean, I really try and do a good job in rotating, and I've really fallen more in love with even the micro tracking feature. Macros are so important, but macros, in my opinion, just aren't enough. You can eat chicken and rice and hit your macros. And does that mean you're getting nutrient dense foods? Does it mean you're putting food in your body that's powerful? And, Dr. G happens to be one of my best friends, and we probably talk, if her husband and my wife wasn't comfortable, they think we were weirdos, but like we're all a big family. But we talk 5 times a week at least, and I'm repeating that. And we were talking just this morning about just powerful nutrients,
phytonutrients,
right. And these are the things that need to be really thought about. And I feel like your nutrition is going to be taken to the next level when, we're trying to rotate different vegetables and maybe different fruits. And, for a while I was, Dr. G put me through a food sensitivity test. One of my favorite carbohydrates to consume is jasmine rice. I can eat pounds of it. On days I have to hit 700 grams of carbs. It's easy. It's way easier than sweet potato. But I started noticing that when I was consuming jasmine rice, I was getting very congested. So this is something now that forces me to get off of it for a while. And now tracking new foods, that means I'm taking new nutrients into my body. So this becomes like a domino effect. Like we just want to really rotate and have fun with it.
And I think the first thing, sorry, I just want to jump in here and add this. One of the things, and I see this with patients, is there's a little resistance to starting, right? It's kind of a hassle and you've got to get used to it. But if you're mentally prepared for that slight resistance of getting into the groove of it and just executing on doing it and tracking, it becomes very empowering, because not only do you see your macronutrients, which really, if health and wellness are truly what you're looking for, we have to assess what we are doing from the macro level to the micro level. It becomes essential to be able to see what you're doing so that you can improve upon things. The more you do it, the easier it gets. And sometimes people can go in cycles of doing it and then going and, taking a break if you're taking a week break and then revisiting it. But again, it's like brushing your teeth. As soon as you start doing it, then it provides you with your own self-empowerment. And that, I think, is in part where magic happens.
I just can't imagine not doing it anymore. It's just become part of my everyday life. And then Dawn, I remember you saying like you felt almost like more out of control by not tracking at this point, and that's so true.
Listen, next, I saw a question come in, like, do you guys ever not track? And next week I'm on vacation with my family. We're going to be snowboarding for a week. I'm not going to track that week. And it's just because there's going to be so much volatility in my eating. Like I'm really focusing on consuming nutrient dense foods. I'm focusing on making sure that, maybe I lose a meal a day, maybe I go to 4 meals a day, like I'll be just fine. Right. And I think, that 1 week off sometimes, almost remotivates me to jump back into it that following Monday. So these are just, once in a blue moon. Yeah. It's like, if you're on vacation with your family
or you are pregnant.
Yeah, or you're, oh yeah. And by the way, hold on. So Dr. G one day, she FaceTimes me, but man, I've known her for like 10 years and I've never seen her put anything bad in her body. So she messages me one day and I'm like, how you doing? And she's holding a pretzel in her hand on the Upper West Side. And I was like, oh, you're human. I was more happy than she was. I mean, New York City pretzels are the best, but we had a lot of fun with that.
A lot of people also commented, and I love that people are chiming in with, tips and advice as well. A lot of people have mentioned the copy and paste feature in Cronometer, and everyone that mentioned that, thank you so much. Jacob, that would be a good tool as well. You can copy individual meals or whole days, and that just makes it super quick. We do have a ton of questions I would like to get through. Marielle says, what else can I do other than exercise and eat healthy to get my cholesterol levels down because they are too high?
So, well, number one, let's talk about cholesterol. There is quite a bit of confusion out there. Typically, dietary cholesterol that you eat is not a measure of blood level cholesterol. So your body makes cholesterol, and oftentimes there's an inherent set point. So number one, this is really, if your cholesterol is actually too high, this is a part where you work with your physician and you really just do a full risk assessment. You look at your heart, you look at your inflammatory markers, and then you can determine if that's something that actually needs to be dealt with. And maybe your triglycerides are too high, so you need to lower your carbohydrates. Tracking is really important, especially if you have elevated cholesterol, in the way that you can determine, is this a food consumption issue or is this actually more of a genetic issue?
Right.
So movement, and then of course, calorie control is a big thing.
Right.
Great. Charlie asked.
I sorry to interrupt. I've seen cholesterol be affected, and you're asking me how. Well, I would do bloods, or clients I work with would do bloods like every 6 months, and I would see it get affected just from training sometimes. Like it can be. Of course. It can be that easy. I'm not saying it always is, but it can be. So
lifestyle is always king or queen, depending on what you decide. Lifestyle is so important.
Charlie says, hunger is the enemy. Any hunger fighting tips?
Yes.
Push-ups. My cooking. Push-ups, my cooking, water, and sleep. I got 4.
Also, when we start talking about hunger, right, it's very rarely have I seen someone gain an excessive amounts of body fat from eating a lot of good stuff, right? And when you're talking about hunger, most of the time we're really discussing what's happening in the evening. Okay, so you come home from work, you're maybe stressed out, you're relaxing, you're letting your guard down, you see that bag of chips or that ice cream in the cupboard or the freezer, and you're like, all right, let me dive into that, because it's like the food becomes a drug, right? So 9 out of 10 times when I would increase someone's caloric intake throughout the day, very rarely are they craving anything in the evening. Mm-hmm. And if your meals are off and you are going into the evening and you're in a deficit, you are that much more in chance of your getting those signals sent to your brain, like, I'm hungry, I want something sweet. If you're satiated, and I'm always saying, I always use this as an example. If I was to sit there and cook for you for the next 7 days and literally train you and cook for you, and I'm just like feeding you, handing you your food, you probably wouldn't crave anything that was, off the regimen, because your blood sugar level is going to be maintained. So for me, that's a huge part of this. It's not only eating nutrient dense foods, but it's maintaining blood sugar levels. Like, I'm way more concerned with that than like like, meal timing when it comes down to like your anabolic window and all this BS out there. Like suddenly there was this period of time where like, if you didn't have your protein shake right after training, you're not building muscle. Like I tell people to eat after training, not because I'm worried about that window of muscle building. I'm worried about them maintaining, that level of satiation. Mm-hmm. And if they're not satiated or their blood sugar levels all off throughout the day, the evening's going to become that much more of a difficult time for you.
Yeah, I think he's absolutely right. When you're talking about hunger control, it really is about blood sugar regulation, right? You want to keep blood sugar stable. You don't want ebbs and flows. You don't actually want low blood sugar. You then increase cortisol and you are driven to feed. And exactly, if you function that way, reaching your goals are very challenging. The good news is that humans are predictable. You rarely are going to be surprised by the cookies in your cabinet or what Don was saying, like whatever is on the counter. You must prepare for your weaknesses. So remove them from the house. And people say, well, I have kids, but you know that they're there. So you're going to plan in advance. And this is where I think the idea of kind of backloading food is not a good idea, because by the time you get to the evening, you're starving.
Too late. It's too late, right?
Right. It's too late. You're starving. You want to eat everything in sight. You have a dysregulation between your stomach and your hunger cues. Planning out allows for success. Allowing to execute appropriately will feed your success. So again, plan, manage blood sugar. Protein is the most satiating macronutrient. When you start with protein, it sends signals to your brain and you're less actually likely to overeat. So there are things that you can do to essentially augment your willpower.
This is great. We have the reverse question to this, basically, from Natasha. This one's a little long, but I'm going to give you guys some context. So I'm reversing after maintaining on 1,200 calories for way too long. You and me both, Natasha. My problem is that I eat so many veggies and protein and nutritious foods. I'm super full all the time and having a hard time getting more in. I just have no appetite, and the increase in protein is making it worse. I've been limiting carbohydrates due to podcasts I've listened to with Dr. G mentioning keeping carbs low, but it's just really hard to get my calories up. Do you have any thoughts?
Well, I want to jump in here and talk about the low carbohydrates. The carbohydrates need to be thought of as a meal basis, right? So the idea of keeping carbohydrates low, we have to really quantify that. And that really is 50 grams or less of carbohydrates per meal. That is not low. And that doesn't mean that you can't have multiple meals. The average American who is sedentary is eating 300 grams of carbohydrates. That's too much. The RDA is somewhere between 130, maybe 150, right? That's what the recommended amount is. So this idea of keeping carbohydrates low, it's really a meal distribution issue. And that means thinking about the carbohydrates per meal, 50 grams or less, to minimize that ebb and flow of blood sugar so that you can maintain your blood glucose, right? Your regulation. And number two, so you are not then going on this roller coaster of starvation.
Right.
So.
Well, I mean, guys, like I said earlier, it's math. When she gave that 50 gram number, and do I consume high levels of carbs? Absolutely. But Dr. G also knows.
If you're training, you can do it. You have to earn your carbohydrates. You cannot be sedentary, because glucose in itself is toxic to the tissue. You
100%.
have to move it out of the bloodstream, right?
100%.
So if you are training, then that number can exceed 50 grams, right? Don, some of his meals are 70 plus. Guy trains like a monster.
Right.
And you track it. It's not some nebulous number. You're not having, I mean, you know exactly what you're doing.
So you're training per meal.
Wait, one second to add to that. Like I love plant strong diets. Like, what does that mean? I'm not saying that like plant-based, I'm saying plant strong, which means that we get an array of veggies and a heavy amount of it. But bodybuilders have this problem that you're having right now as well. And that's why they actually, and I'm not telling you to do this, but they actually have to cut back on some veggies, because it's so fibrous that it's going to fill you up and it's going to keep you satiated. So if you're stuffing yourself on veggies and you're unable to get any other food besides veggies and protein, and your starchy carbs are low, yeah, that's going to be a problem for someone, for a bodybuilder trying to put on size. So that's where I think this becomes a little bit of a game of math, maybe, like if you're unable to get any starches in. I don't know, Dr. G, what do you think? I mean, how much veggies is she getting? Is she getting 15 pounds of veggies a day? Like that might be a little much, right? Like
I think that it becomes, I think individuals can definitely meet their caloric needs, even if they need to increase their calories. The way to do that is you determine how many calories you need and you pick nutrient dense foods like fats. So that will increase the calories to where you want it to be. And I would definitely reduce the carbohydrate or reduce the fibrous vegetables, because that seems like that's causing a little bit of gut distress and stretch.
How much protein should we consume after the age of 60?
I'm
hearing different amounts. This is probably case by case.
Yeah, this is very important. I feel very passionate about this. This is probably my dad on here. This is
I already know what's coming here.
I can't wait.
Probably my dad on here, and it's a plant question. Like it's like, the guy in the crowd. As you age, your efficiency of protein changes. You actually need more protein as you age. It becomes incredibly important to overcome muscle, which becomes resistant essentially in its efficiency and utilization of protein. A minimum amount an aging individual should have is 1 gram per pound body weight, period, because you have to protect aging muscle tissue at all costs. Now, here's the other thing. So for example, my dad is 150 pounds. Maybe he's a little bit heavier, but Dad, I'm just giving you the benefit of the doubt here. Let's say he's 170 pounds. I have him eating 170 grams of protein, and sometimes he's between 150 and 170. And someone will be like, that is so much protein. It's not. You have to maintain that tissue. And the meal, again, we go back to a meal distribution. That should be between a minimum of 30 grams of protein to 50 grams of protein per meal as you age. This is probably the most misunderstood concept and the single most important concept in aging. I'm actually a trained geriatrician. My specialty, one of my specialties is in aging health. So 1 gram per pound body weight. You must make sure if you're aging to get 30 to 50 grams per meal. Don, was that what you're expecting?
That is what someone just asked. Is that 1 gram per pound, no matter what activity level?
Yes. It is different for aging individuals, especially over the age of 60. Once you lose that muscle tissue, it is much more difficult to get it back. Can you get it back? You can, but the uphill battle of that happening is incredible. Do you know that falls are one of the leading causes of death in elderly, and not even just elderly in general? It's the second leading cause of unintentional death, falls.
I like telling my aging population, or call them my more seasoned population, that
mature.
Think of muscle as body armor.
It is body armor.
Because I'll have like when my grandmother fell at 86 and had to be put under anesthesia for 11 hours. That was the decline of her life at that point. And if she had that body armor on, if she had, more muscle density, like her body probably could have withstood that fall. So, that for me, when people are saying, or doctors are saying, you're getting older, you shouldn't resistance train, you shouldn't lift weights. Well, that's nonsense. You're going to be squatting to sit on a toilet to the day you die. You better make sure that you have that movement quality. Don't tell me that your doctor says you shouldn't squat. Like maybe it's a body weight squat. Maybe it's a goblet squat. I'm not saying it's putting a bar on your back, but we better not remove these qualities, and we better not stop focusing on, the fact that muscle building is not important. Muscle building for years has gotten this rap of like, this muscle bound individual, muscle building.
Like my husband. No, just kidding.
I've worked with Victoria's Secret models that understand the importance of resistance training. Blake Lively, resistance train. Emily Blunt, resistance train. Like all these, Cindy Crawford, who I've worked with, resistance trains. These women understand the importance of being strong. They understand the importance of of having muscle. None of them walk around looking muscle bound. So get that misconception out of your head. If your nutrition isn't where it needs to be, and your resistance training, and you're out eating fast food and drinking wine every night, guys, there's a cost of doing business. Like, you're going to turn around, you might look puffy, you might think that your clothes are fitting you tight. You know, there is a cost of doing business, but to change this approach, and we got to stop looking at muscle building as this like sexy term.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I think that people are starting to trend that way though as well, right? Like, there's a lot more education about that. We have some very good questions. Hillary called that population well-seasoned and spicy, the people that are.
I like it. I like it.
And I like that a lot.
I like spicy.
Me too. Well-seasoned also sounds just really good. Lori mentioned that she feels honored to hear this information, and that's so great. We'll be doing these quite often, so this will definitely be regular occurring. Nancy has a great question regarding the need for 1 gram of protein per body weight. Can that be plant, bean, grain, as well as animal and dairy? Does the protein source matter?
Yes, it does. It really does. And then this becomes a little complicated for thinking about it in terms of plant and animal protein are different. They have different the way in which the amino acids are put together are different. So we talked about earlier that there are 20 different amino acids. Plant has a different kind, and animal has I shouldn't say different kind, a different ratio of all of those amino acids. You can target the total protein in plants, but you have to understand you will likely get 3 times more carbohydrates. I'll give you an example. For 6 cups of quinoa, you will get the same amino acid profile, essentially the same protein amount in 1 3-ounce chicken breast. So that becomes really, really important. So if you want to choose plant-based protein, this is where tracking is really helpful in Cronometer to actually see where your carbohydrates are going. And then I would adjust from there. So they cannot be used interchangeably, but they both can be used effectively.
What about supplementing then for people who are on a plant-based?
Great. Branch chain, perfect.
Is that the better option then?
Yes, you can use branch chain amino acids. I typically recommend a scoop of creatine to kind of round it out. Absolutely acceptable. Or an individual, if they choose to use a plant-based protein powder because they say cannot tolerate whey, you just have to make sure it has the correct amount of amino acids.
That's awesome. Someone just asked if we could ask or answer a specific question. I don't see that one. Can you copy that?
I'm looking also, and I don't see.
Yeah, Carrie, if you could copy that, that'd be great. We'd love to answer that for you. Dawn, this would be geared specifically at you from JJ. Do you have programs for those with osteoporosis and to gain bone density and quality via exercise? Is that something you have?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say I'm catering the program for someone with osteoporosis, but I work with a seasoned population. I mean, I've worked with people in their 80s. All the programs that I design, I think there's an approach you need to take with these programs in reference to intensity and mobility being the combination of flexibility and stability. So all of my programs, start with a portion of mobility, and then we get into strength building, and with strength is going to come a level of hypertrophy, which is muscle stimulation, muscle growth, right? Which again, doesn't mean we're going to get bigger, but we want to help improve muscle density, bone density, and that's going to come through this type of resistance training. So I've got plenty of programs. You can go to donsaladino.com and check them out. I'm always giving free stuff out though. So if you want the free stuff, you can go to my Instagram, which is Don Saladino, and you can go to my YouTube page as well. And there's nothing there costs anything. If donsaladino.com, that's my business. So you can get stuff more in depth.
I linked to your website in the chat. If anyone wants to check it out. We are getting short on time, but there are a couple questions still. I keep hearing about the damage being in a calorie deficit does to women's hormones, yet the other narrative is calorie deficit is king, hormones don't influence it. What is a girl to do or believe?
What a great question.
Great question.
Thanks,
I think
Carrie, for bringing that up again.
we have to tease this out. Being in a calorie deficit, we have to define, are we starting with being overweight and now we're trying to get to a regular, a more comfortable weight? Or are we talking about being in a calorie deficit because you're in starvation mode? If you are in starvation mode, your hormones will decrease nearly across the board. Likely your period will stop. Your thyroid will also decrease. But again, when we are talking about calorie deficit to lose weight for someone who is trying to lose weight is separate from this idea of a calorie deficit that relates to starvation. Two totally separate scenarios. Yes, if you are in the zone of starvation, your hormones will be affected. If you need to lose weight and you do it safely and appropriately, and you are not crash dieting, and you are giving your body time to, like Don was saying earlier, to recalibrate, then your body will go to a more comfortable weight because you are doing it in a way that is, I don't want to say somewhat more gentle, but let's say it's more calculated.
That is great. We'll take one more question. If anyone has any questions, you can also send an email to support. Both Dr. G and Dawn are making bi-weekly videos for us, and we're always looking for content ideas. So they can absolutely answer those as well.
And I do answer a lot of these as well in my Instagram. So my Instagram is my name, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon. I have a menopause post coming up. It absolutely addresses this. And on my YouTube, I do a ton of education and we talk about some of these concepts. And that's just another way. And like Don, it doesn't cost anything.
Yeah.
Except your time.
It's
Except
such
your
a
time.
Okay, last question is from Brittany. I'd love to take them all. I'm sorry, we're running short on time. Is there a way to lose the belly on your lower abdomen? I'm struggling with it. Dawn, take it away.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't believe in spot reduction. So the thought that we're going to train the lower abdomen and suddenly the area of body fat in the lower abdomen is going to come off is, it's nonsense. But I would, when it comes down to training your abs and training your core are two different things, right? Like your core, those internal, those deeper muscles, and the abdominals, the rectus abdominis is going to be more visual, right? That's what we kind of, look at. You hear the terminology of that ripped six pack. But I do know that ab training, sitting there and doing, 500 crunches, I'm not going to grab a light dumbbell and sit there and pump out, 500 times or 100 times with my bicep. I'm going to focus on putting muscle on my bicep. And with more muscle on my body is going to become more of a fat burning furnace. I think it's the same thing with the midsection. So if we're training our core through, specific things like farmer's carries or lunging or squatting or deadlifting, and that could be wrapped any which way, right? I don't mean putting a bar on your back when I'm referring to squatting, but if we're going to turn around and train the core there, and then with the ab work, we're going to do, we're going to get really good at things like hanging knee raises or reverse crunches or doing some weighted work, meaning like maybe some kneeling weighted crunches or something that's going to help produce a level of hypertrophy on your abdomen. I believe that is going to, help build and develop that abdominal wall to become, a little stronger, a little bit more rigid. And then through our nutrition plan and getting the skin really thin, that's then going to become more visual, right? Like if you dropped your body fat and never did a bicep curl, you're going to have a really thin arm, and your skin's going to be thin, but you're going to have no development underneath it. And I think this is what a lot of people do, is that they're so concerned with burning fat, but they're not necessarily focused on putting muscle on around the abs. So I know when we do that, from an aesthetic standpoint, everything becomes a little bit more visually appealing. But, again, getting the abs strong looking and getting the core strong can be two different things.
Awesome. Everyone, thank you so much. Everyone's sending thanking messages to you too. Dr. G, Dawn, thanks for taking the time to.
Are we doing this again? When are we doing this again?
Oh, we'll have to. I think this is so good. I'm so happy that we did this.
Maybe I'm going to do the next one at the barn.
Well, I thought that you guys would get together and do it.
Yeah.
You and I will shoot that day. We'll cook dinner for our families, and then we'll come out here. We'll make a whole afternoon out of it.
And then in the spring, I'll come and do it there too.
Come out from Revelstoke. We want to have you there.
I will. Thank you so much for tuning in,
Thanks,
everyone.
guys.
We really
Bye, everyone.
appreciate it.
Bye. Thank you,
Good
ladies.
night.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.